Wretched Radio begins in 3, 2, 1.
Every once in a while, we gotta the religious people. There are 720 churches in Charlotte. I'm sure we can find one where you can stuff your face. Shut up. Quit pointing out the problems.
You know what? You're going to hell anyway. I don't even know about you. I got no time for you.
Men will be lovers of self, proud, arrogant, abusive, swollen with conceit. You watch some of today's rock star pastors on their YouTube channels, and you will see every characteristic Paul listed in that text I just read. You will see it all played out in vivid detail on the church stage.
It's time for Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Just in case you weren't exactly sure where to land on the pot issue, we have a resolution. This is Wretched Radio, thanks to the American people and the times how they are a-changing. 2 states have legalized marijuana, which means, that's right, Christian, we actually need to ask the question again. Didn't think we'd ever have to, nor should we have had to. May a Christian smoke marijuana? I'm sure pastors are going to be confronted by this in Colorado and Washington. Hey, Pastor, now that it's legal... Tony, what's going on over there?
What?
Can you imagine? I mean, it's one thing to see people smoking cigarettes outside of a restaurant, which, by the way, I have to tell you, my cigarette-smoking Christian brothers and sisters, you just look really...
You want to know where it looks the worst?
People who drive by and look at you like it's really
outside
quite
a hospital.
Sad. Yeah, with a tube hooked up and a breathing apparatus. Yeah, I've seen that before, too. I love it in, like, the Twin Cities where it's a little on the chilly side for, like, 8 months out of the year, where people will stand on the grate where heat is coming out of the sewer just to stay warm while they get lung cancer. But just in case you didn't know which side of the issue we should land on, I think it quite simply is resolved with this headline right here. In case any confusion, former President Jimmy Carter okay with legalizing marijuana. So there you have it. It has to be a bad idea because he hasn't come down on the right side of an issue, well, frankly, ever. He was on CNN Tuesday. I'm in favor of it. I think it's okay. I don't think it's going to happen in Georgia yet, or I'll stop growing peanuts and start growing pot. Hey, I was talking to Ray Comfort about the marijuana issue, and Ray, typical Ray. So, Ray, what do you think about marijuana? Well, there's a reason they call it dope. There you have it. So thank you. That's pretty cut and dry, right? That makes you a dope. There's a reason the pothead stereotype exists. And then he said, I said, Ray, what would you say to the people who would claim that we should enjoy everything that God has made? And he said, well, cursed is the ground with weeds. So if you want to smoke a curse, then go ahead and have at it. You got to love Ray Comfort. Check out his new movie, by the way, Genius. Just go Google for it. You will find it. Back to Jimmy Carter. I don't think it's going to happen in Georgia yet. We can watch and see what happens in the state of Washington and let the American government and the American people see, does it cause a serious problem or not? Really? So we're going to put 2 states and lots of people at risk. Right now, more people get into collisions or serious fatal accidents. Fatal accidents are serious because of pot, if they've been smoking pot, than alcohol. This is a major problem.
I have a stupid question.
No, hey, remember, no such thing as stupid question. Just
stupid
question askers. That's right. Fire away.
Isn't it still against the law, the federal government, to grow and smoke marijuana?
Now, apparently, this is one of those times where the government has decided we'll let the states do what they want. Not with gay marriage, but, well, it depends on what side of the issue you happen to land on. Remember,
got it.
Liberalism, one-way street. We are going to take a year or 2 or 5 or 10 to figure out what happens in 2 states and then make a decision? Really? The National Transportation Safety Board is looking into technology to end drunken driving in the United States. They want to make sure that there's some technology for people who have been convicted of any form of drunk driving. Some sort of breathalyzer, a piece of equipment won't allow them to start the car because they're so concerned about people dying. 60% of wrong-way collisions, drivers are impaired by alcohol. I don't think it's going to be a problem with pot because It seems like a good idea to me. In the meantime, in Amsterdam, they're now going to try, no, they've succeeded now, in banning smoking pot in school. Well, I don't know. I think it's a good idea. I think it's okay. Amsterdam's mayor said Wednesday he would formally ban students from smoking pot at school. This is what happens right here. You got a bunch of kids getting stoned and then walking into the classroom as if our SAT scores haven't dropped low enough. Under the tolerance principle, this is Amsterdam, marijuana is technically illegal, whatever that means. But police can't prosecute people for possession of small amounts. So that little loophole allows for the coffee shops, the smoky shops, to have like puffs of smoke just billowing out of their doors because people are smoking pot at the cafes. But it's also had the unwanted side effect that Dutch children are frequently exposed to the drug in public areas. And they have access to it to boot. After a change in national law, the city will now be able to declare, as of January 1st, no toking zones. That's under a public nuisance ordinance. Don't want the kids exposed. Why not? What's the problem, people?
At least I figured out where we are, Todd.
I think it's a good idea. Yes.
We're 30 years behind Europe. I could never tell if we were 30 years ahead of them or 30 years behind them. We're 30 years behind.
We don't need to see what's going to happen. Come on, y'all. All we need to do is listen to our brand new reporter here at Wretched Radio. That's right. We have a brand new reporter. Now, during this report, if the reporter that we've now taken on because, well, he apparently feels it's a little too dangerous to be working at Fox anymore, Steven Crowder is going to bring us a report on marijuana. It's one of those whistling sounds after his tooth got chipped from that union fellow who bopped him several times in the mush in Michigan, and then the network saying, well, that was a rather boisterous affair. No, it was a violent affair. It would have been violent if it had been a Tea Party event. It was merely boisterous because it was a union event. This guy went after Steven Crowder and just wailed on him. Oofda. Not a peep from mainstream media. However, Steven Crowder did a 6-minute report. Now, I watched this about a week or two ago, and I thought, well, do we really? I mean, it seems to be kind of a no-brainer. But thanks to a conversation we had here at Wretched Radio about a few days ago, it seems that not everybody is agreed on the issue. So now our brand new reporter, Steven Crowder, this has nothing to do with theology. We'll tackle that in a bit. This has nothing to do with the Bible. We will absolutely deal with that in a few moments. But first things first, what about the deleterious effects of marijuana? Take it away, Steven.
So I'm here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, one of the first cities to actually decriminalize the drug and home to a few more than enthusiastic supporters. Free the weed! In order to get to the bottom of the issue. Marijuana. Should it be legalized?
Yeah.
Good thing.
I definitely think that it should be legal.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Government's cracking down on unhealthy snacks and vending machines. Big gulps banned in New York. I'm sure you've heard of this. Good idea, bad idea?
I think that it's a good idea. I don't want to say some people have reached the point where maybe they shouldn't make their own decisions, but I think that's what it's becoming.
I think it's kind of good, because then, it's better for everyone's health.
Think marijuana should be legalized?
Yeah. I mean, you can do whatever you want to your own body.
Except the big gulp.
Yeah.
Touche.
Oh, big gulps, huh? All right. Well, see you later.
This banned. This legal. Now, there are some people who think that the federal government does not have the authority to make drugs illegal regardless of how harmless they may be, and that's a fully legitimate discussion to have. However, among everybody that we asked, everyone thought that marijuana should be legal, and not one made a constitutional argument. They all actually said
it's way less harmful than a lot of things, such as alcohol.
I think it's just another drug like alcohol.
It's not really harming anyone. It doesn't really cause harm in most people's life, and certainly less harm than alcohol.
So considering that this is the premise under which the discussion of marijuana legalization is now being discussed, it's important to find out if it's true. So we sat down with Dr. Phyllis Boniface, a doctor who specializes in psychiatric care and, more importantly, the possible effects of marijuana.
It's actually very damaging. And to compare it with alcohol, just to give you a basis for comparison, humans are designed to metabolize alcohol in the liver at a certain rate per hour. The brain is largely fat, and this drug is stored in fat. And so what happens is after the intoxication is long over, we have a drug that's hanging around exerting an effect on your nervous system for weeks to months. People who smoke at a young age have a much higher incidence of psychosis and psychotic disorders.
I am a former community college history teacher who did time in a federal Christian Zionist drug gulag.
We think that there's a gene that predisposes people to schizophrenia, for example.
People here work for the military-industrial complex that kill people all around the world.
And when people are exposed to marijuana, they have an onset of their illness about 3 years before we normally would see it. And their psychosis is much worse.
The entire drug war is a fraud. The reason why marijuana and other drugs are kept illegal is because if they were legalized, the Pentagon, the CIA, and the White House would miss the money.
Now, forgive me, my crazy old pothead speak is a little rusty, but allow me to try and translate for a second. The war on drugs waged by this government has been largely ineffective. In legalizing drugs here in the United States, I believe that we would reduce the failed war on drugs, decrease crime, and likely see a result of less overall use, as in countries abroad who have followed such a policy. There's this idea that legalizing marijuana would free up a ton of space in our penitentiaries, but it's just not true. I have the numbers here in front of me, okay? Less than 0.1% of state prisoners were marijuana possession offenders with no prior sentences. Let's take that a step further. Only 1.4% of state prisoners were drug offenders held for crimes only involving marijuana. You said you did time in a federal penitentiary for nothing more than marijuana possession.
Attempted distribution.
Attempted distribution. What's that exactly?
Well, that means I was trying to sell it. When I sold marijuana to my friends and my customers, I was providing a community service.
Any prior infractions?
DUIs.
So when you think of prisons filled with people like this, it's actually more like this.
Okay, a few things. Firstly, here in the United States, where marijuana has either been decriminalized or legalized, its usage tends to increase more than some of you may know. We went to community high school here in Ann Arbor to ask teenagers about their experiences with marijuana. The results were shocking. Have you ever smoked marijuana?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Yep.
I have.
Yes.
So your mom knows?
Now she does.
I've been doing it probably 3 years now.
15, been smoking for 3 years. You know what I was doing at 12? Playing Pogs. Out of all the students we'd interviewed, only 2 had not smoked marijuana. Their biggest reason for trying it? Surprise!
It's harmless.
There's no bad side effects.
I don't think it can be necessarily harmful.
It's not like a bad drug.
It's a plant.
Well, you mean it's natural?
Yeah.
So's uranium.
Well...
After all, it's got nothing on a 16-ounce Mr. Pibb, but funnily enough, the perception of marijuana being harmless, as largely pushed by today's marijuana lobby, has statistically resulted in increased use among teenagers.
We know that it affects myelinization, and myelinization is what determines the maturity and the development of the brain. People don't know it, but your brain is actually developing into your early to mid-20s. When we're altering the myelinization, we're actually altering the way your brain will function for the rest of your life.
That being said, the kids do seem to think that it might be more prevalent here than nationally because...
In Ann Arbor, yes, I guess. Everybody seems to have some.
Shocker. Despite what people say, the more lenient the drug laws, the more likely people, including kids, are to light up. No. What about the idea that ending the drug war would reduce crime, put drug cartels out of a job? You think maybe these cartels who operate in illegal activity...
Yeah. Probably. I mean... Yeah, but I mean, you still get that extra revenue, right?
Well, it's like here in Ann Arbor, right? It's illegal, essentially, to use it medicinally. We just stopped by the high school. What people do is buy it from the dispensary, get a prescription, and then go sell it at the high school.
Yeah, I know some people that have done that, yeah.
You know people that have done that?
I may or may not, yeah.
Yes, it appears to be that people who make money through crime tend to find another way to make money through crime.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
So, if we legalize drugs, would that really be better for today's law-abiding citizens?
The myth that nobody's ever died from a THC-related accident is just not true. And the reason people believe that it hasn't happened is because it's a tougher process to go through to test for it.
You smell something, Rabbit?
Fear. I can take your blood alcohol level just by a breath test.
You fellas been doing a bit of boozing, have you? Sucking back on Grandpa's old cough medicine?
It's not a Miranda right or anything like that. It's just based on your driver's license. Where if I want to get your THC level, I have to get a warrant to take your blood from you or urine.
You're crazy!
Do I want to have it legal for me to do? Well, then the police have to have more rights to be able to check you for it. And where do people fall on that line?
And as a matter of fact, there is some data to suggest that legalization actually increases crime, as seen here from the LAPD DEA.
No, I'm absolutely shocked. Stephen Crowder, our brand new reporter here at Wretched Radio, he's really good, that fellow. There's going to be a lot of stuff that gets slung at you, that gets bandied about. And remember, just like any other campaign to try to forward something that is bad, one of the strategies is to simply create a storyline and then repeat it over and over and over again. And what you just heard debunked from Stephen Crowder is that the lines that they like to throw out are all wrong. They're inaccurate. They're lies. It's propaganda. Not true. So be prepared for that. But, Christian, that's really not where our argument and our defense should lie, because somebody else will come out with a different study. They'll come out with a different statistic. Governor Carter, President, oh, how we wish. President Carter would say, well, when they legalized it in Puerto Rico, it was better for people. And they'll tote out a statistic. We don't argue from statistics. We argue from the Bible, which is what we will do next on Wretched Radio.
The biggest project is underway, and we could use your help. What is the biggest project? A worldwide distribution of the biggest question. To college and high school campuses, to churches, fairs, wherever there are lots of people, we hope to be handing out the biggest question. That is the biggest project, to educate, inform, and alert as many people as possible to who they are, who God is, and how they can be reconciled to Him. And we need your help. Log in now to biggestproject.com. biggestproject.com.
He sought refuge with the government of a neighboring country, only to have them arrest him and threaten to turn him over to his own government. Maksed Jabarberganov left his native Uzbekistan, where the government wanted to arrest him for his work as a pastor.
When he and his wife and 4 children reached Kazakhstan, they thought they'd be safe. Instead, Kazakh authorities arrested the pastor and are preventing his wife from even visiting him. They're threatening to send him back to Uzbekistan, where he may be sentenced to 15 years in prison. Kazakhstan also says the religious belief charges facing Maksed in Uzbekistan are equivalent to terrorism charges.
Let the Voice of the Martyrs bring you testimonies of today's heroes of the faith. Subscribe to VOM's free monthly newsletter at 875-VOICE. That's 875-VOICE. Call 875-VOICE. The Voice of the Martyrs is a Christian non-profit organization.
If you are a Wretched Club or Wretcheder Premium Club member, thank you. Do you know it's your support that helps keep us on the air? It's true. If you're not a Wretched or Wretcheder Premium Club member, want to check it out? Just go to WretchedRadio.com. You'll find you get full radio podcasts and all the archives of past Wretched radio shows. You can view the Wretched TV show. There are discounts on Wretched resources in the Wretched store and discounts on all Wretched live events. A whole lot more, too. Please go and check out all the details at WretchedRadio.com. It's time for a drive-by minute.
Another heresy. We heard inklings of this in the first century, certainly in the book of Colossians, Gnosticism.
Yes, and we talked a little bit about this in the first century. Gnosis, you could say, is the Greek word for knowledge. It's a special knowledge that transcended. It was above the faith of the church. And they had a variety of beliefs that we would consider unorthodox. They thought that the creation of the world was the result of a disaster, and therefore that's why everything's miserable, so that the world is not, the physical world, the universe is not very good. The elect few have what they called a divine spark that became imprisoned in matter, in their physical body, and then loses memory of its true heavenly home. You know, this actually sounds like Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard. I mean, there is an idea of that in Dianetics, in New Age mysticism, and so on. I mean, it's just Gnosticism is still alive and well.
You can get Drive-By Church History and all of our Drive-By resources at WretchedRadio.com. Wretched to the Nations is our effort to get our resources to ministries around the world so they can be equipped in areas of theology, evangelism, and in their daily Christian walk. Go to WretchedRadio.com/nations and please sponsor one of the ministries there. Not only will you be providing Wretched materials for that ministry, you'll be helping keep Wretched on the air. Please check out Wretched to the Nations, WretchedRadio.com/nations, and support a ministry or two if you can, and support us at the same time. wretchedradio.com/nations.
You shut your foul mouth!
Darwin's theory of natural selection has never had any proof, yet it has been universally accepted. Dr. R. Goldschmidt, Professor of Zoology, University of California. Material Basis of Evolution, 1940.
In the history of bad ideas, this is a humdinger.
This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Yeah, it's come to this. We now have to ask the question and be prepared to answer it. May a Christian smoke marijuana? Wow. And who says the times haven't changed? This is Wretched Radio, and not only have they changed in this arena, honestly, who'd have thought? 2 states legalizing pot smoking. How's about the newly elected Vermont governor vowing to pass assisted suicide in 2013? That's right. She ran for office partly on the premise of legalizing, or at least the promise, of legalizing physician-assisted suicide. She ran on that, and she won. Now, she's having a little bit of a difficult time moving the thing forward. But seriously? Assisted suicide becoming legal? And this is something that you run on? And people say, yep, that's our gal right there. Absolutely staggering. So once again, some of these issues, Christian, that we had to deal with a number of years ago when they were just being talked about. They were just, well, this could happen. No, we're there now on many of these issues. We are there now. And so we need to be prepared to give an answer in response. And I have to tell you, please, make sure that you do not commit this error and hold the feet of the people who commit this error to the fire. Don't let them get all squishy. Don't let them argue sociologically. Don't let them argue based on, well, this is what's happened in Amsterdam. That's all very interesting. Please, let's argue from the standpoint of the Bible. The more I see the debate happening in our country, the more it just cries out, in my opinion, for just, well, this is what the Bible says. This is what the Scriptures teach. And that's the end of it. Here's my authority. And then respond with the question, and what is yours? Where do you get your authority? Why do you think smoking pot is good? Where do you get yours? Why do you think assisted suicide is good? You formulate your opinion on whose authority. And we need to make this an authority issue. Now, is it possible that we will become more and more marginalized because of it? And the answer is yes. But I would like to suggest we may be considering where we are at in the history of our country and the trajectory of where we've been and where we are and where we seem to be going. We need to start taking more of an Islamic view of world events. Kind of in it for the long haul, not looking for the quick fix or, we staved it off for a month. I think we need to start thinking more in missionary terms. If you were a Christian living in Iran right now, how would you go about living as a Christian? Now, certainly it is not that extreme here, but I think there's lessons to be learned. What should our thinking be? It is so anti-Christian now. All of these, they're falling down like dominoes, and we are starting to look more and more like a stranger in a strange land. Let's start thinking longer term. And rather than trying to defend, maybe it's time to start saying, hey, let's get back to the basics here, like a football team that gets shellacked for 2 quarters, goes into the locker room, and doesn't just decide to rerun the same plays. Let's take a look and see what the enemy has been up to and what the coach says we're supposed to be doing, and then get back out on the field for the 3rd and 4th quarters and be obedient with a new strategy. And in this instance, I would like to suggest a biblical strategy. And so as we re-enter into these debates about assisted suicide, you're going to be seeing more and more as we are able to determine the health of a baby when the child is 25 years old. Thanks to the scientific advancements, we need to start talking about eugenics again. We need to be always talking about the life issue, the marriage issue, as those, I'm telling you, that'll be a series of dominoes. You just watch the states. In fact, I just read Kasim Reed, he is the mayor of Atlanta, just signed some resolution. I don't think there's anything legal about it, but now he's decided, now that it's safe, to come out in favor of gay marriage. One after the other. It will start to happen. And I'm telling you, if it happens in Georgia, Woo! The only place that would be more extreme might be Texas. They will just continue to fall down. How will we respond? Let's make it biblical. Regarding the issue of marijuana, how must we respond? Not with Steven Crowder-like statistics, as that's a sideline. Hey, by the way, do you realize the effects of marijuana? So we have some sociological study that simply supports what the Bible teaches. So what does the Bible teach about marijuana? We will discuss that in a few moments here on Wretched Radio. But first, as we are wont to do, on Thursdays, a little bit of good news from Trish as the biggest project just keeps rolling and rolling along. Love bringing you these updates because, quite honestly, in a bit of a sea of bummer news, it's nice to hear what's going on out there with Christians passing out the gospel. In fact, coming up, we'll probably do this in the new year. We have a ton of stories that were big news in 2012. All year long, as stories would happen, in my mind, I would think, okay, that's a pretty big story. I'm going to just put it in a little file, a little folder. And I did that, and we probably got 70, 80 stories. Way too many. But the point is, the theme for all of those stories, and I tried to pick stories that captured not just an incident, but captured a big idea, a big movement, a thought, a trend. So these aren't just, oh, there's a little story. Oh, that was interesting. Oh, that's good. That's bad. No, these were things that I thought were pretty emblematic of something bigger. And we've got about 60, 70 things. And you know what? Out of all of them, not to be a bummer, not one of them was a positive Christian trend. Now, I think I have thought of 1.5, maybe 2, bigger trends in 2012 that were positive. But I have to tell you something. We were really scratching our brains trying to figure, okay, what was a really big story? Not that there weren't big stories. The church is the church, and people are getting evangelized. People are being fed. They are being clothed. They're being taken care of because of the church. But that's not what qualifies it for a story of the year. What was a big trend in evangelicalism? Okay, Tony, real quick, just off the top of your noodle, think of 2012. What was whoa, that was like a tidal wave, like in 2010, I think, with Time Magazine, front story, the cover story was the Young, Restless, and Reform movement. That's big. The gospel-centered movement, that's a big story last year. Name a big positive evangelical story trend from 2012.
Wow, nothing comes to mind.
It didn't for us either. We had to work hard, so I think we've come up with 1 or 2. But overall, in my estimation, it was a bleak year for the church. It just was bleak. It was a bad year for, if you will, Christianity. 2012, honestly, appears to have been a tidal wave shift. Like the tectonic plates just moved, and we just got a big shift, and it is not flowing in our way. So we like to bring you nice stuff, and this is one of my favorite stories of the year, quite honestly. The biggest project has been stunningly successful. Stunningly successful. We don't keep track of numbers all that closely, but when I talked to the adult about it, I said, well, how many of the biggest question have gone out through the biggest project, or just people, individuals, getting them and distributing them? And he said, about 250,000.
He sounds just like that.
250,000 of them passed out this last year. Now, come on. That's got to make you feel a little better with all the rotten news going on around the state. Trish, what good news do you have for us today?
I have good news about our Africa team. Remember how the DVDs were stuck in customs? They've been in customs for over a week, and it was going to cost a whole bunch of money to get them out. Well, the pastor in Africa worked with the custom people. They lowered the cost, and some folks, wonderful folks in America, paid for to get those DVDs out. And so now they're out, and they're planning to give away, and they're going to keep moving on. So that is great news.
Sweet. And so those will be passed out. Now I understand some DVDs. In fact, a DVD will be received by how many people in Caldwell, Texas?
Right. Caldwell, Texas is a small little city, and there are 1,300 homes in just this week. Someone purchased 1,300 DVDs to give them to every single home in that city.
How sweet is that? They're doing that on their own initiative. They're passing them out. Okay, more good news. If you haven't seen the video from Racine, Wisconsin, said the new weatherman, the wonderful video of the passing out, the distribution of the Spanish biggest question.
That's right. Who would have known there was a Spanish community in Racine, Wisconsin? I showed my husband the video, and he said, "Wow, that's really neat," And
yeah, I didn't expect it either.
Who would have known?
I got it because mostly when I think of Racine, Wisconsin, it's Midwestern, pretty white,
right
up there. So it was magnificent to see that going on. All right, you were passing them out in Fort Worth. You and Christmas. There was some Christmas caroling in Frisco, Texas, correct?
That's right. Well, let me tell you about that Fort Worth, Todd. It was so neat because when we keep our eyes open during these giveaways, the Lord is always doing something special in the midst of it. And at the very, very end of our giveaway last week, we had, given out hundreds of the DVDs to the students at Northside High in a pretty bad area in Fort Worth. And at the very end, a kid comes up with these green eyes, a real cute young guy, and he goes, "Can I get some of those?" He happened to be the Christian club leader and wanted to get a lot of them to bring this to the entire Christian club at Northside High.
Sweet.
Too neat. Very dear. Yeah, and we went Christmas caroling over the weekend, Todd. They paid us $5, I think it was, to leave. We sounded terrible. It was freezing. It was like 20 degrees out. We were Christmas caroling. A lot of us can't really sing very well, but we got the biggest question into a bunch of homes, and people opened up their doors and even brought us out some baked cookies and gave us $5, so it was really neat.
All right, hold on just one moment, Trish. Tony, Trish was just lamenting that it was 20 degrees freezing there in Texas. You got any response to that?
Sorry, Tony.
You saved me any cookies, though?
Can a girl be a sissy? All righty. Apparently, again, all right, in Guadalajara, there was a group that gave out DVDs, correct?
Yes, Revival, I think, boy, Guadalajara, things are happening there.
I'm looking at the pictures.
Joseph Urban is
cool.
Planting a church in Guadalajara. Just a neat brother, good friends with my husband, very solid Bible teacher. He's from America but speaks fluent incredibly well. And then Aaron Block, another brother that used to work for the Way of the Master. Anyway, they headed up a huge team of 25 people, Todd. That may be our largest team that we've had since the inception of the biggest project. 25 people, which means every person basically got 100 DVDs. They gave them all out and were able to have a ton of one-to-one conversations.
I'm looking at these pictures of open air. Is this open air preaching in Guadalajara?
Absolutely, yes. Open air preaching happening in Guadalajara, and tons of ministry going on. In fact, this young man Joseph Urban that's planted a church. I guess there's 80 people coming to this church in Guadalajara. Some are driving 2 hours away to get there.
Sweet. All right, so we are now looking forward to February 14th. You can go to biggestproject.com. Look at that, Trish. Have you been working hard? City College of New York, University of Northridge in Los Angeles. I think that's California. University of Maryland. Hey, Minnesota State University in Mankato. That would be fun. When is that? It's February. Oh, boy. Another one in 20. Yeah, it'll be colder than 20, I tell you that much. So they're going to be happening on February 14th. Apparently, I lost. It's the Love distribution. 24,000 DVDs in one day. We got about 16,000 to go. So, hey, almost there. So if you can get involved with the biggest project, please get to thebiggestproject.com. Go to wretchedradio.com. If you can support it, sweet. Please be praying for it. If you want to get a team going on, just get in touch with Trish. What's your email address?
Yes, biggestproject@wretchedradio.com, biggestproject@wretchedradio.com, and specifically if you are able to head up a Spanish distribution, all Spanish DVDs, I want to hear from you. Email me at biggestproject@wretchedradio.com. Let me know what church you go to. Let me know what school you would be interested in going to. I'd love to hear from you.
Sweet. Trish, as always, excellent. Look at that. Huh? There's a little good news for you. This is Wretched Radio.
Save over 50% now on the Evangel Equip Bundle. Now, this includes the Biggest Question and the Case for Atheism DVDs, plus the Terrified and Creation in the Gospel MP3s. These will make you ready for any witness encounter and hone your apologetics. You'll learn how to discuss the existence of God with an atheist, overcome objections from an evolutionist, discuss the biggest question a human can ask, and hear real witnessing encounters with a step-by-step study guide. The Evangel Equip Bundle at WretchedRadio.com.
This is John MacArthur inviting you to join me for Portraits of Grace. The greatest attribute of God is His holiness, and absolute holiness is the standard for anyone who wishes to be in His presence. But there's only one way anyone could become absolutely holy, and that would be if God's own holiness was given to that person. And that's exactly what happens through faith in Jesus Christ. Only through Christ's sacrifice and our faith in Him will God credit His holiness to our account. What a gift. By contrast, we are often unholy in practice, aren't we? So the Bible commands us to be holy yourselves in all our behavior. It says, let everyone who names the name of the Lord abstain from wickedness. And when we do that, unbelievers will see there is a difference in how we live, and they'll attribute that difference, we hope, to God. This is John MacArthur, trusting your lives are portraits of grace.
Odds are you spend a ton of time in your car, between work and church and kids and errands. It's just how we roll these days. That's where Drive-By Theology comes in. While you travel here and there, hither and yon, you can listen to 48 theology lessons in nice drive-time chunks. Todd and Pastor Bob Glenn will bring you a rock-solid theological foundation, redeeming your time on the road. Get your copy today of Drive-By Theology, and check the entire Drive-By series at WretchedRadio.com.
Now here's a clip from one of our favorite pastors here at Wretched Radio. This is Alistair Begg.
You're not just going to wake up one morning and be in the kingdom. If you're wishy-washy about it, you see, it demands earnestness. If anybody would like to be my disciple, remember what Jesus said? If you'd like to be my disciple, then you should take up your cross, you should deny yourself and take up your cross every day. Deny myself? I live for myself. No, I'm looking for a religion where I don't deny myself. I'm looking for a religion where I please myself. Oh, we have a religion like that. It's the unbiblical, unchristian version, but it sounds as though it might suit you perfectly. You can do anything you want with anyone you want, anytime you want, and believe anything you want. It's called Unitarianism, in one form. There are young men and women here today, and you are not in the kingdom because you have never barged your way in. You're not earnest. You've never denied yourself. You're flying on the wings of your dad. You're buoyant on the craft of your parents. Wouldn't you force your way into the kingdom?
Perfect for your family or personal devotions, Exalted Worship. So great a salvation.
All hail the power of Jesus' name. Let angels prostrate fall.
Kirk Cameron will lead you in prayers and confessions.
Though my sins rise to heaven, your merits soar above them.
Scott Crepane brings you profoundly biblical worship songs and hymns.
Eternal truth attends thy word.
Get your copy of Exalted Worship at WretchedRadio.com.
My job is to try to find the truth.
The truth? You wouldn't know the truth if it kicked you in the head.
The Bible says in Psalm 102, "In the beginning you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you remain. They will all wear out like a garment." Everything in the universe is wearing out. Today we call this observation the second law of thermodynamics.
In this house we obey the laws of thermodynamics.
This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Hey, one good, one bad. Batting 500. This is Wretched Radio. Looking at my email, you can always send one to idea@wretchedradio.com. This is very sweet. Al said that he received his Tomorrow Club book. Made him cry. Al, from one fella to another. I don't blame you. They're beautiful. If you are a member or one of those people who is supporting a Tomorrow Club, perhaps you've received a handmade booklet from the kids of the Tomorrow Club you sponsor. Precious. They are just plain precious. I think we're almost there. Almost, but not quite. So if you can sponsor a Tomorrow Club, that would be sweet by the end of the year. Because as soon as we get all the Ukrainian ones sponsored, we're off to Moldova. And I was just told yesterday, by the way, the adult was telling me some stories that the Martys shared with them from Moldova. If you think Ukraine is poor, Moldova, is worse. The Martys were talking about going into Ukraine. They went into a village where the people said, we've never seen an American before. And they went to an orphanage that was the orphanages, you have no idea how horrible they are. You want to see something that will rattle your world? Go to the internet, the YouTube, and type in the word iron crib and watch a report that was done by Don Shelby probably 20-some years ago, and it will just break your heart. And that's what orphanages are like in Eastern European countries. And the further out you get into the sticks in Ukraine, the worse they become. So the Martys, who started out the Tomorrow Clubs, were taken to an orphanage that was way out there, and they said there is nothing. There is absolutely nothing except a Tomorrow Club. And here's the kicker. It isn't even, if you will, an authorized Tomorrow Club. This one isn't on our list. How did somebody just started one up without the Martys knowing about it, because the orphans have nothing. And so they saw child after child with shaved head because they got to watch out for the lice. So the hair fashions, shaved head, clutching their Tomorrow Club booklet. It is precious to them. It is all they have. That is what the Tomorrow Clubs does. If you are not sponsoring one yet, would you consider it? Go to wretchedradio.com, wretchedradio.com. Look for the Tomorrow Clubs. You'll find it on the site. And then click on it, watch the video, and if you would be able to sponsor one, that would be a terrific way to end the year. So that was lovely to hear. And then I can tell a scolding email when I read one from Diane in the warehouse. Thanks for mentioning the expedited domestic shipping so people can get their wretched stuff on time. And then here comes the magic word. But you forgot to mention the gift certificates and gift memberships that people get immediately pronto toot sweet. Big smiley face. All right, fine. Are we happy now?
I'm pretty giddy.
You haven't been smoking marijuana. Not to say that, hey, as long as it's legal. Yikes. Pastors are now going to be confronted with this. What should pastors say? What should you say, Mom and Dad, when the kids ask? Or you are teaching Sunday school and the issue comes up, as it is going to. I suspect more and more states will fall down and will be dealing with this issue. We need to be prepared to give an answer. Now, how do we do that when the word marijuana doesn't even appear in the Bible? That's the first thing you do. If you want to figure out an issue, you want to come up with a systematics on it, go look for all the words of your subject that are referenced in your concordance. And then go look, if you want to learn about heaven, go look for all the Sheol and the Hades and the Gehenna and heaven and hell. Look for afterlife. Any of those words that you think of, like a Google search, do it in your concordance, and then you read all those verses and you kind of get a clear picture. And you don't need to read somebody's book about taking a visit to heaven. Marijuana doesn't appear. Now, you can look up the word pot, but that's just like a kettle, so that's not going to help you very much. How do we proceed? This is a project that we're actually working on. I've been talking about this with Owen Strand. He's up at Boise University, Southern Seminary, going through issue by issue. How do you come up with a Christian position? Gun control, immigration, war, and now in this instance, smoking marijuana. I would like to suggest to you, give or take, we should always be thinking about 5 or 6 things, and you can remember these. We are going to present this in a brand new product that we are indeed working on, Wretched Worldview with Owen. Be thinking these 5 or 6 things. Whenever you read a story and you go, what am I supposed to do with that? With assisted suicide, okay, where do I start? Number 1, lose your pre-understandings. You have got an opinion on every issue. Lose them, even if they're right. Just lose them. Why? Because you don't want to influence your thinking, what the Bible says about an issue, because you have got a pre-understanding. So you've got to ditch them. My pre-understandings, I think pot, I think Cheech and Chong. I think pot, I think of Minnesota Teen Challenge, story after story of kid after kid and adult after adult who ends up in a severe treatment facility with the crack and the heroin. How did it start? Typically, cigarettes. Then what? Pot. And I think of all of those people that I met. So I've got that pre-understanding, and I go, bad, it's very bad. Now, that may be right, and I think it is, but I got to lose that. And conversely, if you have a good experience with marijuana, meaning you know somebody who has been able to handle it. They appear to be a high-functioning smoker of the weed. So you think, it could work. You know, I could see it. Maybe just a little bit and some brownies. I can understand it. You got to lose that presupposition. Fair enough? We all lose our presuppositions and our pre-understandings. So then we now proceed with hopefully a clean slate. Here's the big question. What are the direct Bible verses that address my subject? The clear ones that mention heaven or hell or marijuana, and there's our problem. We don't have marijuana in the Bible. We have one word that seems to jump out, and the word is pharmakia. Can you hear pharmacy in it? And there's a reason for that, even though most Bible translators translate that word, which is used 3 times in the New Testament, as witchcraft and sorcery. Huh? So why pharmacy and witchcraft and sorcery? It is because the sorcerers, the witches, were concocting potions which were hallucinogenics to give to their followers so that they could be connected to the afterworld, connected to the Netherlands, to talk to the deity as they hallucinate from a, let's call it what it is, a drug. So while most interpreters, in fact all of them, call it witchcraft or sorcery, there is a component of what we would consider today to be an illegal drug substance. Galatians 5:19 through 20. The deeds of the flesh are evident, which are immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, there's our word, sorcery, pharmakia, enmity, strife, jealousy, etc. Those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. Now, does that verse tell me for sure smoking pot is a sin? Not so fast. Cheech. We look at that word, and it definitely has witchcraft and sorcery. And it has that component of drug usage or a concoction of some sort. Is it definitive? And the answer to that, unfortunately, is not as much as I'd like it to be. Because, you see, the author may have just been saying, I'm opposed to witchcraft. He may have been saying, I'm opposed to any effort outside of Jesus Christ to be connected to the divine. He may have been saying that component of illicit drugs there, but I think he could have used a better word for it. So he may have had that in view. I think that he did, but it's not definitive. So we've got a pretty strong inference, but I'm afraid I don't think that we can say, for sure, pharmakia means no smoking pot. I think it's strong, but I don't think it's definitive. But don't panic. Our case, my anti-smoking pot friends, is not lost. Question number 3. What are the indirect verses that address our subject? And now we find a lot. I wanted you to remember Galatians 5:19 through 20. Remember all those sins? The deeds of the flesh are evident. Those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. So one of the things in that list is drunkenness. Drunkenness. Now, can we agree that drunkenness, getting high, that's what is in view there? Don't lose your mind due to a substance. Keep your mind clear and sharp, and alcohol will not cause it to be clear and sharp. This is not a sermon against drinking. That's a different issue. This is about smoking pot. Drunkenness, we agree. Sin. No matter where you land on the alcohol issue, drunkenness, sin. So getting high, we would be able to say, is a sin. That's pretty fair. Our second verse, Galatians 5:22 through 24. We continue. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And there's a ton of verses that point to the fact that a Christian should be what? Sober-minded, self-possessed, in control, not drunk, serious, mature. Here's the question. Does pot smoking produce that type of fruit? I'm just asking you, does pot smoking produce that kind of fruit? Our third verse, Galatians 5:22 through 24. Again, I want to use the same verse, different application. A Christian should be under the influence of the Spirit. You are either under the influence of the world, which produces fruit which leads to death, sinful deeds, or you are led by the Spirit, taught by the Spirit, influenced by the Spirit, which produces things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Question, where do you think pot smoking fits in this scenario? Deeds of the flesh or deeds of the Spirit? So I take a look at just 3 verses from the Bible, and I lean toward, pot doesn't really seem to fit into the picture of a sober-minded, mature, clear-thinking, possessed, if you will, by the Holy Spirit type of activity. Number 4. How does the gospel influence my understanding of the issue? I need to take a look at the whole Bible and ask myself the question, all right, the big kabang of the Bible is what? Does that do anything to my thinking of where I'm going with my position on this issue, smoking pot? And I think the entire Bible is basically the story of God redeeming a people for himself through the redemptive work of his Son, so that we can produce fruits of righteousness, so that we can go and share the gospel, leading others to the Savior, so that they can do work in keeping with repentance, so that God gets glorified because of the work of the Son. Now, you have to thoughtfully consider this. Does pot consumption fit into that picture? Does getting high sound like the gospel? And you say, well, that's a little vague. Okay, it is a little bit, but we still have to work through it. Does smoking pot and getting high sound like the gospel to you? Number 5. What has been the historic position of the church? That's a piece of cake. They rarely wrote about it because it was just considered a no-brainer. You just don't get stoned. You don't use a drug for these purposes. Now, that's not definitive. The church is not infallible, but it is instructive. Number 6. What does recreational pot smoking do to my Christian witness? What does the world think if I'm smoking a joint, even if it's legal? I would like to suggest to you, at this stage, even if smoking pot is not a sin, and I don't think that's true, what does it do to your testimony? And that should cause the Christian to go, thumbs down. Now, what about some of the objections? Didn't God create everything for us to enjoy? Sure. Sex is good, adultery is not. Hemp, I would suggest, should be used for nice, warm, fuzzy stockings, but not for getting high. So yes, God has given us all things to enjoy rightly. Wine gives you a buzz. How is that different from pot? Well, it's a lot different. You see, when we compare two things that are kind of similar, doesn't mean they're equal. A car transports people. So does a rocket ship. Nobody confuses the two. Let's not confuse wine and marijuana. If pot could be manufactured in a way that it didn't get you stoned or cause addiction, would it still be a sin? And the answer is no. But then it really wouldn't be pot, would it? What about medicinal usage? The jury is out. We don't know for sure about the medicinal benefits. And let's say there are. How's about pharmaceutically extracting the components that seem to offer some medicinal benefits and give them in pill form and not in bong form? Because I think people would say, hey, sometimes there can be some stronger things like heroin even used to calm the pain of a patient. Right. But is anybody advocating for mainlining? Let's lose the smoking pot and let's let it run through the pharmaceutical companies. And you say, but I know some people who really can handle it. Okay, maybe they can, but how do we know that these people might not be even better at what they do if they didn't smoke? So I would ask, with all of that, with all of those issues, what should be our conclusion? And I would say this. Here's my take on the whole deal. The evidence points that the Christian should take a look at the history of Christianity and what the Bible teaches and doesn't teach and land on the same side as historic Christianity. Recreational use, non-pharmaceutical medicinal use of cannabis, a sin. Until next time, go serve your king.